Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And you know I love to bring people into your lives, into your living room, that can help guide you and find that successful career even faster. We're going to collapse that timeline to success. And today, oh my goodness, I have got one of the greats on the show. So I'd like to welcome Jeffrey Hayzlett, chairman and founder of the C-Suite Network, author, host at C-Suite Radio and C-Suite TV, and Hall of Fame speaker. As a leading business expert, Hayzlett is frequently cited in Forbes, Success, Mashable, Marketing Week, and Chief Executive, among many others. He focuses on business transformation, leadership, innovation, and change management. Now, his distinctive humor is huge, and his huge, bold style make him an authority on brand marketing. So with over 200 small and large business acquisitions and sales under his belt over the course of a 26-year career, he is the perfect person to talk to us about careers today. And not to mention, he's a former CEO of a Fortune 100 company. Jackpot. Did you know that was all you?
Yeah, that's me. That's me. Sometimes it's fun to listen to all that, right? And you can't get too full of yourself when you start listening to that, because when you're in the middle of doing those things, you don't think they're that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You're just doing them, and that's the key thing. You know, I'm from South Dakota. I'm just a guy trying to make a living, and I put my pants on just like everybody else, and just my boots on.
And your boots,
like most cowboys, but not like everybody else. Yeah, there you go.
And I think that's a great attitude to have, especially when you've had such a successful career. But the stories you tell.
Yeah.
And, I've heard you speak on numerous occasions. I'm so fortunate to be a part of your C-Suite network. I'm so absolutely fortunate that your CEO is my mentor. So we're very integrated here.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the room with this guy?
Well, it's funny because like yesterday I was talking to somebody who's running for president. And today I was talking to somebody who runs the Olympics, and then I was talking about Peter Uberhoff, and you forget sometimes the kind of people. But most of the folks that you're talking to at that level, they're the same as anybody else. They just have more zeros behind their name. But again, the same thing. I always tell everybody about businesses. I bought and sold a couple hundred businesses, as you mentioned in the intro, for billions of dollars. And yet, the thing that I learned is that the business on Main Street in Sioux Falls, South Dakota is the same as the one on Wall Street. But the difference is the number of zeros. And so if you look at it from that perspective, don't get too big for your britches, as my mom used to say, or my grandmother used to say. And I really try to stick to that. I think if most people who talk about me or get to know me know I'm a fairly authentic person. I say what I'm going to say.
All the time.
On my TV shows, I get bleeped on my own shows. I get red dotted on the podcast shows because of my language sometimes. But I'm just straightforward. And sometimes, I remember when I was doing my primetime show on Bloomberg, I remember someone said, did he just say that? That kind of thing. Because I'm saying or thinking the things that anybody else is thinking. You go like, well, that guy's an idiot, and I might say that. I can remember one time I'm on stage with Richard Branson and two other people that we had on stage, and we're doing this little back and forth. And I remember this guy said something. I just leaned forward and said, "That is the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard of," and the audience went crazy. But because I was just saying what everybody else was thinking,
I think that is so incredible, and I've been in the room with you when you've done. I've been the recipient of that. Really, what are you thinking, Casey? And I'm kind of like, okay, don't cry, don't get your feelings hurt. Just being honest.
Well, and by the way, I try to do it with some compassion, although I forget sometimes. I'm like a Mack truck, so I have to be a little careful on the delivery, but. But I would think you would much rather have that than me just pat you on the back and say, keep going for it, kid, and knowing full well you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And by the way, let's be clear, we're all going to fail. We always fail. It's about winning fast, not failing fast.
Absolutely. No, and to your point, you do say it with compassion, and it's just, you're very direct. I tend to be very direct too.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm as direct as you. Maybe one day.
You're a lot nicer. You're a lot nicer.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some people don't respond very well to my directness, and they're like,
Is that a man-woman thing sometimes? I think they expect it more from men, quite frankly, which is unheard of. I mean, I've got very strong women, as you know, on our leadership team. I've been surrounded by strong women. I'm married to a strong woman, even though she's 5'1", tiny little thing. Like my daughter will say, "Dad, you can't say that to Mom." I say, "Don't take up for her. Take up for me, man. You don't understand. I'm the one that's reeling here." I just think it's more important to be just fully transparent. I want people around me who are transparent. You walk into a boardroom and you see the elephant in the room. Let's talk about it. Don't ignore it. There's a big, huge elephant wearing a pink tutu in the room. Doesn't everybody see it? You'd much rather talk about it than walk out of there and say, "Hey, did you see it?" "Yeah, I did." "Well, I didn't say anything." You'd much rather have those kinds of conversations. And I think the world would be a lot better for that if we did that.
I could not agree more. So I want to go back to the being transparent part, because I think in being authentic, because every time I see you in the room, you are the same person.
Well, it's hard. By the way, of course you got to be that way. It's hard enough being yourself. Why would you want to be somebody else? And I see so much, especially in the speaking world. You mentioned my Hall of Fame speaking, but I got Hall of Fame marketing, Hall of Fame sales. I got those as well. But the thing I see a lot of speakers who are fake. I see a lot of false prophets out there. False prophets like the Bible and false prophets like the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And they're more into fame than they are fortune. And in doing so, they project this aura of I'm successful, I'm this. I just don't have time for that. My father passed when he was 61. I'm now older than him. I'm on borrowed time, even though I hope I got my grandmother's genes. She's 105 or was 105. And, my thing is, why wouldn't you be yourself and be who you are? And I do get a lot of, accolades for that, because I think there's a lot of people out there who aren't like that.
And I think so I met someone one time, and they came in and they did just what you were talking about, presented this whole persona. And I will tell you, I bought in hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people do.
It's kind of like the snake oilsman that sounds like this is too good to be true. Well, it was,
It usually is.
And when that facade started crumbling, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was hurt.
Well, if you've got a really good leader in business, they're going to tell you the good things, they're going to tell you the bad things, and why you may not succeed or why you shouldn't do this. And I think you need to do that. It's just like when I present to a board of directors, or I present, we're going to acquire something, or just having a discussion. Here's the good things and here's the bad things. And so I want, even when my team presents things, I have a partner who I've been partners with for a couple of decades, and most of our calls start with, "You're not going to want to hear this." But that's the thing I do want to hear, because somebody else will be trying to hire it. Or I've got team members who will say, "Well, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus." No one's throwing anybody under the bus. We're just discussing, because in the case of business, for most of us, the things that we're going to do, no one's going to die, okay? As a result of this conversation, let's just be very clear. There's a lot more important things in this world than most of the business that we're doing out there today. So to be that person, to be grounded in who you are. And luckily enough, I'm just as insecure as anybody else, but I stopped listening to those voices a long time ago. And I was with a group of little high-level, A-level celebrities one time, teaching them about the brand of themselves, because I've been doing this for a long time. And they said, "Well, what about those voices?" And I said, "What voices?" And they go, "Mr. Hayzlett, those little voices in the back of your head." I said, "I stopped listening to them a long time ago." And so I walk with a great deal of swagger. I tell people I'm good at what I am, and someone will say, "Well, you're bragging." It's not bragging if it's true. So, as long as I'm delivering on my promises, as long as I'm delivering on what I am and who I am, I'm comfortable with that. And I think I would love to see more people get comfortable with that. I spend a lot of time with my granddaughters, who are the most beautiful children in the world. Now, I'm not just saying that because I'm their grandpa, and I happen to live in a Barbie hell right now, but, nonetheless. But I want them to have great self-esteem as young women. And so I'm doing my best to put my imprint to say, "Hey, you're smart, you're ingenious, you're inventive, not just pretty."
Yeah.
And I do my best to try. And by the way, they're competitive, they're unbelievable, they're funny, and all that. But that's what I'd love to see from more people. And you know this, we run into people who have all kinds of problems, whether sometimes mental health problems, because that's still out there a great deal,
Yep.
or just the insecurity because someone told them they were an idiot, someone told them they weren't smart, someone told them they weren't worthy. And I see worth in everybody, and I see worth in ways that we can do it. And I just want them to be the best that they can be.
Well, and I think a lot of those narratives, in fact, I just had a coach on the last episode, and we got to a limiting belief of mine that I thought I'd overcome a long time ago. And it was really, it was groundbreaking for me, because I was like, I thought I dealt with that.
Well, we all have trauma, and
Yeah.
in some shape or form, and you've got to really move through it. Everybody has it.
Yep.
And so you just have to try to identify it. For some people, it takes a lot longer to get through it. Some of us just ignore it and have coped with it, even mental health issues, myself with depression and so forth. I've just learned to cope. I didn't know that's what it was, And so, you just have to find those things. There's lots of places to go get help. You just have to learn to take the armor off, be a little vulnerable, and move through it. And by the way, that applies for everybody I've met in the C-suite. That applies to everybody I've met in the Oval Office. That applies to everybody I've met in most boardrooms around this country and around the world, for that matter.
So I want to go back to the little voices.
Yeah.
You said you just stopped listening to it.
Yeah.
You just literally just stopped.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm good
because
now.
that's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. Everything, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Right?
True.
So
Good point.
if it was easy, everybody would have $1 billion business. It is not easy, okay? Or $1 million business, for that matter, or a successful business, or a successful marriage, or whatever you want to put behind that. It's not easy. It never is. It's supposed to be hard because it's hard. Okay,
Yep.
So that's the struggle. That's what the Lord put us on the earth for, is to be able to struggle and learn the good things from the bad things. And so you have to try hard. You have to try. I constantly try hard to be nicer, to be not so gruff. I grew up in a military family, so I answer like my dad, who's Sergeant Hayzlett. I answer like that to everyone that I know, and I have to be careful that they understand that that's my nice way of doing it. And it doesn't sound so nice. So we have to try.
Yeah.
I said this to my wife today. Did you notice I was being nicer? Did you notice I'm trying to be nicer? And she puts up with me. But yeah, you get where I'm going.
Absolutely.
It's hard, and this stuff is ingrained in us, and it's set very early in our life, just like a lot of our habits, the things that we do in business, and the ways in which we really accelerate through our career. A lot of those things are set there, but you can improve them if you look inside and say, hey, I'm gonna make a change.
I'm very grateful that I've always had that curious mindset, and that I have done a lot of that inner work, because when I went through coaching school, was probably one of the most transformative times for me, because as you're going through coaching school, you're getting coached, right?
Yeah.
And when I finally had that shift in my mindset about, you can control this, you can, you get to set how you see reality, right? It's your perception. You can see it as a victim, or you can see it as a champion.
Yeah.
You get to choose that. And some people are like, you don't get to choose if you're being a victim. I'm like, but you choose how you respond to it.
Without question, but at the same time, there are some things that are so bad that nobody should have to go through. But for most of us, I do this, and I think most of us should try. I go through. I'm a hunter. That's what I like. I like hunting. I enjoy that. I'm from South Dakota. That's what we do in our pastime. That's our free time. Hunting is a big thing. Fishing is a big thing, but hunting is a big thing. Pheasants is a big deal. And I'm in a constant state of awareness of what I don't know about. And that's what I try to go into everything with, is that, a lot of us go into this belief that, I know the bottom line. I know what's going on in the business. I know what's happening. And I'm going like, I don't know what's happening. I want to know what's happening. I think I know what's happening. Now let's prove it. And so, the more that we can go at things in a constant state of awareness, the better we would be.
So tell me a little bit about your time with that Fortune 100 company.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get there to that point? And
that was Eastman Kodak Company, and
Yep.
I just completed a big task with another company, about a $3 billion company where we rolled up about 114 companies in a year. And so I led the charge on helping to buy those companies, buy them, integrate them in quickly, and then roll them up. And of course, we were public. And then we changed our name, which was a big thing. We went from an old name to a new name, New York Stock Exchange, rang the bell, did all that. So that was good. And one of my main suppliers was Eastman Kodak. And of course, I'd worked with Kodak years before that, worked with Xerox, worked with a lot of companies in the graphic arts or the printing industry. So I knew a lot of the players. And we got a hostile takeover of our company. And when that happened, I said, I'm out, I'm gone. I'm going to take some time off. Took a trip to Europe with my wife, enjoyed myself. And then while I was doing that, I was thinking about who I could help. One of those companies had to be Kodak. And so I started calling them and saying, you do this, but you're off doing this. Do you think you'd like to go back to the core? And if you looked at what Kodak did, it was about making, managing, moving images and information. So they were excellent at imaging science and material science. So I started looking at companies that they could acquire and then help them buy about $5 billion worth of companies. And the last company that I was working with them on, they said, hey, you got to come on board. And at the same time, I will tell you, I had an Israeli executive that was there. Eli Lubitsch is his name, good friend of mine. Haven't seen him for years, but good friend at the time. And I'd worked with him on some acquisitions before where I'd sold one of his companies twice. And he called my wife every day for a year saying, you have to have him come to Kodak. And then he called the CEO every day, saying, you got to hire Jeff Hayzlett. And that's really, truly, it was, he helped pave the way for that,
That's the kind of champion everybody needs.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. At that time, I didn't know the CEO.
Wow.
I knew a couple of the divisional presidents, a couple of executives in the company, but never the CEO, who turned out to be a wonderful mentor and a wonderful person for me, even though we didn't always get along. We butted heads. You had two bulls in the china shop, so to speak. Although he was a Spanish bull, he was much more sophisticated. He had been in billion-dollar companies, but he taught me a great deal. Most of it was calm down.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really was. I can even remember sitting on stages sometimes in front of thousands of employees, because at that time we had probably 80,000 employees. And I remember him, one time leaning over and not touching my leg, but almost touching my leg, like, breathe, take it easy. Because I get, you can probably tell, I get excited. So it's like, yeah, you put the quarter in, you get to go the full ride with me. So and I've always been that way. I've been like a Mack truck from turn the thing on, boom, I go. I'm either on or I'm off.
So I'm really curious, because you have met some amazing people, and I want to go back to one of my favorite stories that you tell. But how did you position yourself to get in the room with some of these great people?
Just call them. No, just call them. I mean, Trump's a good example of that.
That's the story I wanted you to tell.
Yeah, well, Celebrity Apprentice, how I got to be on Celebrity Apprentice, how we did Celebrity Apprentice. I was in a room like this, like the studio, and with my team, and we're trying to figure out how to market this inkjet printer that we had. And I said, well, you should put it on Apprentice, and we should do it as a task, and then they do it and so forth. And they said, well, how do we do that? How are we supposed to do that? I said, well, call Trump. And they said, we can't call Trump. So I called information, grabbed the conference phone, called information, and got to Trump Organization, got to the receptionist, got to his assistant, all in the same call. She said he's too busy. I left a message, which was a killer message that said, basically, I have a couple $1 million to spend in the next 30 minutes. Either have him call me back, or at the end of 30 minutes, ignore the message, rip it up. This message expires. And she said, I got it. And 15 minutes later, he called. And that's how we ended up doing the show. And there's a longer portion of that where I ended up calling Mark Burnett and everything else. But within a few months, the show was greenlit, and it became Celebrity Apprentice. And we were the third episode of that show. And then I did a pretty good job, because I came back for 3 more seasons, 9 episodes that I was on totally in some way, shape, or form. So it was really cool.
You left out one part of that message that I love.
What's that?
You also told the receptionist, you got it? And she goes, yeah. And he goes, now you have 28 minutes.
Yes, I did. When I left her the message, I said, here's my number. Here's where you're reaching. I said, oh, by the way, Rhoda is her name, Rhoda. I said, Rhoda, you got 28 minutes left. Yeah, well, because I'm in a position of power. I get a position of choice. I have a choice. I can talk to him, not talk to him. And he called back, and we had a great discussion. We had never met before. And by the way, that's the way most things that I've started like that. You just pick up the phone and have a conversation. Usually when you're in the C-suite, of a $1 billion company, you can talk to $1 billion people, right? Or celebrities or whatever, because you've got the power of the price, the checkbook, because we were sponsoring Olympics, we were sponsoring NASCAR, we were sponsoring IndyCar, we were sponsoring the Yankees, we were sponsoring Disney. I mean, all of these things that we were spending billions of dollars for at roughly a $17 billion sales and advertising budget at the time. But yet I was reducing it, taking it down, getting a better spend, turning it from an internal spend to more outward spend. So it was more sales oriented in terms of rather than being overhead, SG&A and all the things that we get into and those things. But you just have to have the confidence to just make the call and have a good value set. If I'm going to call somebody, I don't care who it is. Don't waste my time.
Yeah.
I can tell you numerous times people waste my time, and I'm that way on calls. Like, yeah, I get it. You don't have to tell me how great your book is. You don't have to tell me how good this is. I get it. You got a book, okay? You got a show. You got this. You got that. I get all that stuff. Let's get into what's value for me and what's value for you.
Absolutely. And I find that to be true. That I don't have a $1 billion spend when I call people, but I do have value to offer with the podcast.
Totally. Yeah.
And very early on, I got over my fear of just either messaging or reaching out or finding somebody that knows them to reach out
What's
for
the
me.
worst thing? What's the worst thing?
No.
No, exactly. Then no, that's just one no.
Yep.
You got to tell me 10 more. So if I want you on the show, we want to do this, I'll find a way. We're going to find a way.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't have people's phone numbers or whatever, and but in this network, our C-suite network that we have, we're able to reach out. We're only one separation, two Kevin Bacons away from anybody, and usually you can reach them, and that's a good thing. And if you've developed the credentials, over time, someone of my age and the experience that we've had, then people know you or know of you, or they're willing to take that call, and that's always a good thing.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about the C-suite, why you created it.
Yeah.
What's the purpose?
Well, it's a trusted executive, just like I said. When I was at Eastman Kodak, I knew the value of being able to talk to other CMOs or other C-level executives at billion-dollar companies. And we had rapport. So if you were trying to get out of the Olympics, you were trying to do this, trying to do that, they might call me because they knew I did that. They trusted me because of the nature of what we do. And by the way, that's what keeps people answering your calls, right? Is by being a trusted executive, by being a confidant, and by delivering on the things that you do. And so when I was doing that, I saw the value of that. So then I created a show on Bloomberg called The C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett, where I walked you into the boardrooms of companies where 99% of the employees who work at the company never get to go into. And so I wanted to show people what that was like. What's that experience like? Because it's a heady experience. It's an interesting experience. And it's no different than sitting around any small business, medium business, mid-cap company, billion-dollar company, whatever. Those experiences are the same, just different kinds of intensity. And sometimes different consequences depending on the size of the business. And so that's how it got started. And I thought, geez, how can I replicate this? How can I make this bigger at scale? Because right now, we're inundated by so many things digitally, by false prophets, by people who are trying to scam you and a whole host of other things. I want to make sure we can trust the people that are sitting around that table. And so that's why we created the C-Suite Network. And then give everybody a platform so that they can go out and tell the story and do more good, because it's important for the good people to win. It's important for those that operate with standards and values, who sign pledges that say they won't take advantage of other people, to get ahead of all the charlatans and other people out there. Because today, with some other tools out there, like a website or a LinkedIn, you don't know if they're real. I mean, I get fake profiles every day, and so I want to have a place where I know that this person's trusted by other people, therefore I can trust them. Now it's up to their competency or their reliability to keep me to trust them further.
So let's talk about someone who's earlier in their career that's not yet at the C-suite level. What would you recommend them to do in order to build that trusted network and eventually get to something like a C-suite network?
Well, finding, I know you do a good use of mentors. That'd be one. Hustle is the biggest thing.
Hustle.
Most people are just doggone lazy, don't show up, and they lose before they begin. And if everybody asked me what would you do differently, I would say I'd do it faster. and I would do it bigger. That's the two things. Even though I've done it pretty fast, you know, even though I've done it very big, I could still do a lot better. And that's one of the things I tell people. So I would have hustled more. I would have done things. I wouldn't have paid attention to people tell me how you had to always do it. To do this, you must do this and must do this and must. I wouldn't listen to advice. What I would listen to is counsel. Advice is given by people who have never done it before, and counsel is given by people who have done it over and over and over again. And so I would fast try to figure out the difference between the advice and the counsel. And I would listen to a lot more counsel, because the people who've done it before, they know, like your grandma and grandpa and some of those people, when they tell you something, when they tell you that's hot, it's hot. You should probably pay attention to it.
I love that. And, and that's one of the things as part of Success North Dallas that we're doing for our Young Executive Program is we've lined up a mentorship program for them. And next month, we're launching a coaching program. So they'll have mentors and coaching, two very different avenues to go. Super excited to pour back into the youth in our area and to help collapse that timeline to success, which is what I'm hearing you say. It's not that you're not doing the work, you're just doing it faster.
Doing it faster. The other thing is not putting up with the BS or overcoming captains of no. In terms of a business, that's my biggest thing I have to do is identify the champions or captains of no in a business and try to work around them, or eliminate them, because we love you, but we're going to miss you, and as much as possible to move through that. And I think for a young person who's just starting out, if you start surrounding yourself with valued people, people who have values, people who put people above profits, people who deliver on what they say, not charlatans, not showing up in a private jet and pretending that they're these things or doing these things. Check their background, look at the things, look at their homework, look at what their family life's like, how many, all the different things that they might have gone through, and match it to your values. And if you do that, even if you're not mega successful, you're going to be a lot happier in life. You're going to be a lot more engaged, and quite frankly, you're going to be more respected. And to me, that says a lot of things. There's been times that I've been on boards of directors, front page of the Wall Street Journal, because I'm on this board. In fact, on a board here in Dallas, and I was getting sued by the chairman of the company because he was trying to take the company over. And I said, you can't do that. And my wife says, what are you doing? You're not making any money from this. You're getting sued. You got two other partners that are there, board members are getting sued, but why are you doing it? I said, it's what good people do. And you can't let the bad people win. So there's got to be more people, not like me, but more people who agree with that, because I watch people follow these false prophets. I see people all the time that are following VIPs that really aren't VIPs, right?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. I love real VIPs.
Me too.
Yeah, and by the way, VIPs could be working at a sandwich stand.
Yeah.
They're good people. There's good people everywhere, and we need to find more of those.
That just reminded me. There's a little ice cream shop here. Maybe you should visit it sometime. Called,
I love it.
It's called Howdy's.
Yeah.
And it was started by a young man with disabilities. He has Down syndrome, and they only hire people with disabilities.
That's awesome.
I don't know why that made me think of that.
That's awesome, and that's near and dear to me, because of family members that have dysfunctional abilities or abilities that are dysfunctional. And there's another company down in Long Island that does that, but they grow vegetables and they sell the vegetables.
I think that's so great.
The CEO of 1-800-Flowers started that business. For his brother. His two brothers got together and they did that. I think it's Operation Smile. I think it's the name of the operation. I think that's it.
I'm going to have to look that up, because I love to support organizations like that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And by the way, I love ice cream. That's even better.
Maybe we'll go there after the podcast.
It would be good. I talked to a CEO that's doing a regional ice cream operation out of LA, and how they're trying to take it public and take it big. So yeah, you bet. They invited me to the ice cream place to get it right out of as they make it.
Did you go?
Oh, not yet, but I am. I said, when? I was like, I'm canceling stuff to go to that. And I said,
I'm glad you didn't cancel this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you want a big guy standing at the end of your production facility with a big with a spoon, because that's what you're going to get. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, I cannot believe this, but we are almost out of time. But
Wow.
I know. It flew by, didn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I was saying before the podcast, I was like, I've got 30 minutes of your undivided attention.
Yeah, that was good.
I don't know if I've
get
ever
too
had
much.
this.
I call that deep work.
Deep
you
work.
got a guy named Randy Mayhew, which runs
I
First
know Randy,
Friday
yes.
in the books, and he did a thing on a book the other day called Deep Work, and I love deep work. That's good.
That is awesome. I do want to ask you one of our VIP questions.
Sure.
Because we ask these, and I love to hear all the different answers I've received over the years. And I think what I want to know most from you is, what is one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
Oh, wow, that's great. I do what's called a management action report, but basically what I do is I think of what is it that I need to get accomplished during the day? What are my 5 big things, most important things that I need to do? I make sure I have a list of them, and then what are the actions that I need to take to get to there? That's the most important thing. Now, I don't always succeed every day, but I sure try, and then that guides my day. And so I'll look at my calendar. If I need to delete things, move things, cancel things, I'll do that, because that's the priority that I need to be driving based upon my mutual conditions of satisfaction with my team and the big things that I should be delivering, my major promises.
I think that's beautiful.
Do it every day.
How do people get in touch with you? What if they want to be a part of the C-Suite Network?
Oh, gosh, just look up c-suitenetwork.com. Come see me at Hayzlett.com. For you look up C-Suite Network or C-Suite, and you look up Hayzlett. You can find us anywhere. Social media, we got millions of followers and everything else. You just come to us, and we'll be glad to help you out.
We didn't even talk about your books.
Well, I've got a few books.
You've got a few books.
I have books, TV show. You can find me on United Airlines. Next time you're flying in the friendly skies of United, go and see All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett right there, on C-Suite Radio, C-Suite TV. So yeah, we have all those things.
That is amazing. I am so glad we finally made this happen, Jeffrey.
This is great. Thank you. I'm glad to finally be a VIP.
You know what? And that's how I usually end the show, because guess what?
Do we get to keep the mugs?
You can keep the mugs.
Keep the mugs. Awesome. You get free stuff. Swag.
You know what? You are a VIP.
Oh, thank you very much. That's nice of you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.